If you're dreading a conversation, a meeting, a person, a project that your nervous system is already bracing for, and because you haven't dealt with it or made a plan, your brain keeps returning to it. The dread here is your mind trying to force you to make a plan you've been avoiding. Because your subconscious mind, your sense of self, underneath it all, knows that you've got a Anxiety is a story about the future. Intuition is an observation about the present. If I don't handle this exactly right, everything could fall apart. Oftentimes, we can feel a sense of anxiety because we think that's what it feels like to have ambition. We are eager to be performing, eager to be successful. And what's really going on is that enough already! You've worked harder, stayed later, smiled through it, you've shrunk yourself, you've overexplained yourself, you've apologized for yourself, and still walked away feeling like you were the problem. You weren't. You've been playing by rules that were never designed for you, and you're exhausted. You're done. I'm Coach Mo Fall, and this is Enough Already, the podcast for women who are done performing and ready to heal, reclaim, and redefine what their life actually gets to look like when you step into your real power. No more shrinking, no more trying to be less or more, or whatever they need you to be. We're going to name exactly what happened, get free from it, and figure out what comes next. This is your space. This is your moment. Women, we are rising. Let's get into it. It starts around 4 p.m. on Sunday. That low-level hum. It's not quite a headache, not quite a stomach ache. Not panic exactly, just dread. And she told me she'd had it every Sunday for 3 years. And she just accepted it. Isn't this what work feels like? Like it was part of not only just the job, but part of life. Like it was part of being ambitious. Like it was just what Sundays cost. And I want to talk about what Sundays cost when they're costing you this much and what it actually means. I want to start with a question that might feel obvious, but that I find most people have never actually answered for themselves. What specifically are you dreading? It's not just work. What is it about Monday that makes Sunday afternoon feel like a countdown to a death sentence, to a bad hearing, to a principal's office? That countdown that you're subconsciously making and consciously somewhat aware of, is it a person that's bothering you? A dynamic? A meeting that's going to take something out of you that you don't have anything to spare out of you? Is it the general weight of how much there is to do against how little you have left? Is it a job that stopped fitting the person that you've become? Because the Sunday dread is one thing. It's a signal. And the signal is pointing at something specific. If you're willing to follow it there, or it will keep pointing until you do, or until a tipping point when you quit, say something you don't want to say, or make some false assumption that a career is not worth it, or that your career path isn't worth it, or isn't right, or something's wrong with you. Most professional women I work with have developed a really sophisticated ability to manage the dread rather than investigate it. They plan the week obsessively on Sunday evening because they like having control over their list that makes things being more bearable. They pour a glass of wine and push through it. They work maybe while watching some show that they're half paying attention to just to be with family. Because working is better than sitting in the dread. At least you feel like you're doing something. What they never do get curious about is what the dread is telling them. Like if you really question yourself, if you really get curious, that willingness to follow the signal to its source is where everything changes. Here's the 3 things Sunday dread is actually about. In 12 years and over 2,000 clients, and my own Sunday dread, to be honest with you, almost always comes from one of 3 places. Sometimes 3 at once. The first one, anticipatory anxiety about a specific thing. There was a time in my career where I had a meeting with my boss, the one I almost really just didn't get along with in 1 millimeter. Every Monday morning at 8 a.m., we had our one-on-one. He didn't like me. I didn't like him. I don't know why we were torturing each other, but guess what? Half of the time, he made an excuse to not be there. Now, it's Monday morning, dude, although we were in a hospital setting, so he had a whole list of potential excuses to not be there. But I rushed and got there to be disappointed. So, of course, my Sunday dread was double. Like, I got to meet with him again every Monday, and can't I find some other time to do this? And if he didn't show up, if he canceled, it was like worse. So if you're dreading a conversation, a meeting, a person, a project that your nervous system is already bracing for, and because you haven't dealt with it or made a plan, your brain keeps returning to it. The dread here is your mind trying to force you to make a plan you've been avoiding, because your subconscious mind, your sense of self underneath it all knows that you've got a chronic pattern of anticipatory dread and anxiety that needs to be taken care of. So here's the second thing, accumulated misalignment. And this is the slower, quieter one. Your life has changed. Your values have shifted. What you care about now is different from what you were optimizing when you were designing this career or this job move. And Sunday is the moment when the dissonance between the life you have spent building and the one that you have gets the loudest, because you're about to spend another week living the first one, and you have a major conflict inside. Here's the third, anxiety that has learned to wear ambition's clothing. Oftentimes we can feel a sense of anxiety because we think that's what it feels like to have ambition. That, we are eager to be performing, eager to be successful. And what's really going on is that there's this underlying anxiety. And this one I really want you to sit with, because it requires you really reflecting and pulling the layers off. There's a version of the Sunday dread that has nothing to do with the actual job. It's about a deeper belief that you have to earn the right to be okay. That rest is only valid if you've done enough first. That stopping the forward motion, even for one day, means something bad is going to catch up to you. This version is the most exhausting, because the dread is not the job, it's about you. And no promotion, no title change, no new role is going to fix this. Which version are you carrying? Version 1, anticipatory anxiety about a specific thing. 2, accumulated misalignment. Or 3, anxiety that has learned to wear ambition's clothes. The version can be your roadmap. Knowing which one is talking. This is something I think about a lot, and I don't think it gets enough airtime. The difference between anxiety and intuition. Because here's the thing, both of them show up in your body as a feeling. Well, all feelings show up in your body, and you're getting signals. And if that anxiety signal has needed to find its way to something that you can consciously understand, you're going to feel the sense of urgency, and both of them feel like information, and they require completely different responses. Anxiety narrows your vision. It makes everything feel like a threat, including things that really aren't. It's catastrophizing, the 3 a.m. spiral, where everything that could go wrong is playing on a loop. None of it's happened yet, and your body's responding and trying to solve all the scenarios. It's as if it's already happening, and you're half asleep and don't want to wake up because you don't want to have to put more energy on this. But fighting it almost puts the more energy on. Intuition expands your vision. Anxiety shrinks it. Intuition expands your vision. It's quiet, where anxiety is loud and noisy and clanking a cymbal. Intuition tends to show up as a consistent, persistent knowing rather than a panic. When you sit still with it, it gets clearer. When you try to overthink it, it stays. The way I teach women to tell the difference is anxiety is a story about the future. Intuition is an observation about the present. Anxiety sounds like, if I don't handle this exactly right, everything could fall apart. Intuition. Something about this situation doesn't quite fit anymore. You see how one is a threat response and one is information? The Sunday dread, when you sit still with it, usually has both in it. Learning to separate them, to hear what the intuition is actually saying underneath the anxiety, is some of the most important work you'll ever do for your career. And most people wouldn't necessarily call this personal or spiritual development because it's not as easy as all of that. Finding who you are is different than understanding the signals and messages that are swirling around between your consciousness and your subconscious. So I don't want to leave you just with reflection. Every episode, I want to give you actionable things, and I do. So let me give you something concrete. The Sunday evening reset has 3 parts, and it takes 20 minutes. Is 20 minutes worth shifting that Sunday dread? It's the what am I actually dreading right? Not a to-do list, a feelings list. What specifically is heavy right now? What am I avoiding? What am I bracing for? Write it all down. Here's the reflection questions again. What am I actually dreading? What specifically is heavy right now? What am I avoiding? What am I bracing for? So you're going to write all that down and you're going to get out of your head on paper. And that's the first act of relief. And please write without thinking someone's over your shoulder. And please write without judging yourself on top of the truth. Don't put a layer of, I wish this wasn't true. I wish I didn't feel this way. I wish this wasn't my life. Like, don't add that. It just makes it harder to do the work that's necessary. So part 2 is what's in my control this week. Audit that. What's in my control this week? Out of everything you just wrote, circle what you actually have influence over. Not everything, just the things. This is about getting specific and knowing where your agency is. Where are the things that you can control and handle? What can you prepare for? What can you let go of trying to manage that isn't yours? Or what asks have been haunting you that you've been unwilling to ask? Sometimes this is what the dread is, something hanging out there that we know we should have said, asked, or done. The conversation that just keeps making that relationship with that coworker very, very tense, uncomfortable. So here's part 3, the one thing that belongs to you. Before you plan your week around everything else, identify one thing that exists just for you and not a massive block of self-care. One thing that you can do, a walk, a call with someone who makes you feel like yourself, an hour of something that has nothing to do with your output. If Sundays are consistently this hard, something's telling you something. And the goal is not to make Sundays more manageable. The goal is to understand what you'd have to change to not dread them. So now we go into one thing to stop, one thing to start, and the truth to carry forward. Here's one thing to stop. Stop managing the Sunday dread by filling it with productivity. Planning the week obsessively at 8 p.m. Sunday is not a solution. It might be required to make sure that your week's getting started, but not with that extra dose of the anxiety and the dread. It's a way of staying busy so that you feel the thing you dread is getting taken care of. The signal deserves your attention as much as the doing of the lists and the managing. Here's one thing to start. This Sunday, give yourself 20 minutes with the reset. What am I actually dreading? What is in my control? And what's mine this week? Not to fix everything, to start getting honest about what's actually going on under the surface. The truth to carry yourself forward this week. Peace is not the absence of problems. No, your life is going to be full of obstacles and problems and challenges, all to make you stronger. But if you are trying to avoid all of that input, or if it's landing somewhere unproductive, you have to have a new perspective on presence that you can hold without being consumed by the truth. You're allowed to want peace and to move yourself toward growth that you will be able to handle more and that you will have a greater capacity for the beautiful things in life, which also means you'll have a greater capacity to handle things like this. You're allowed to build toward it. And the Sunday dread, as much as it sucks, is actually your internal compass doing its job. So follow it. Hey, before you go today, if this episode landed somewhere real, if something stirred you that you hadn't had space to look at, Mobi is there for you tonight, not just for next week, not just around the corner, actually tonight. Mobi is my AI-powered coaching platform built on 12 years of my methodology and 2,000 clients. She'll meet you where you are, ask you the questions that cut through the noise. She'll help you do your 20-minute debrief and help you do the soul work before the strategy. That's what actually changes things. The link is in the show notes. Soul first, strategy next, every time. We'll see you on the next episode. This is Coach Mo Fall. I'm so glad you're here. Give us a review. Share this podcast. Tell a friend that she can gain from it. See you next time. If today's episode hit home, share it with a woman who needs to hear it. Because the best thing we can do is make sure no woman sits alone in an experience that has a name. You've been listening to enough already. I'm Coach Mo Fall. Please subscribe and like and comment so this can be sent to more women just like you who needs to hear there is a different way. Take good care.